Dude, is that a Game Boy? What? No, it's a bowl of instant mashed potatoes. Obviously, it's not a Game Boy. No, I mean that, there, beside your bowl of instant mashed potatoes. That Game Boy, there. Oh, that. Yeah, that's a Game Boy. Sorry, I thought you were talking about my mashed potatoes. Can I have a bite? No, this is my dinner, dude. Get your own bowl of instant mashed potatoes. No, I mean the Game Boy. Also no. Hey there, how's it going? I'm TechDweeb, welcome. Thanks for clicking on the video today. You know, I was thinking, which is always concerning, and one of the less concerning thoughts that I had recently is that I haven't made a hidden gems video in a while. Like a long while. Which is weird because I love hidden gems. They're like normal gems, but you have to try harder to find them. It's like a game. Speaking of which, let's talk about hidden gem games. And just so we're clear, in my world, GEMS stands for Games Eluding Mainstream Spotlight. It's an acronym, so I don't want to hear any balking about my choices. The games I'll show you are not mainstream games, which makes them gems, and I will ban anyone who questions me. Today, we're going back to the Game Boy. I've only made one hidden gems video for the Game Boy. One. Like, what am I even doing over here? There are so many good, weird little games on this thing, and I've just been ignoring them. Honestly, I should be fired. I'm terrible at my job. I should lose my YouTube license. Don't unsubscribe though. That's just extra work for you that I wouldn't feel right about. The Game Boy is special to me. It was my first handheld. It kept me company on long bus rides, car rides, pogo ball rides. Pogo ball master! Without it, there's a good chance I wouldn't even be here making videos on YouTube. Because I'd be dead. I've got 7 hidden gems to share with you today. Why 7? Because I picked 7. If you want 8 or 6 or whatever, you can make your own frickin' video. And you should. Making videos is pretty fun. I'd subscribe if you did. I'll be playing these Game Boy games on this little doodad, the Ayaneo DMG, my favorite handheld for Game Boy. This is their new bright silver version. It looks like metal, but it's not metal. It's just painted plastic. It's lying to you, like your mom when she told you she loved you. Still very nice though. Beautiful OLED screen, super sleek and slim and sexy, and it can run way more than Game Boy. You can even do up to PS2 and GameCube on this thing. Total overkill for this video, but I recorded all the footage on it and it's my favorite device for Game Boy, so I figured I should give it some time in the spotlight. Anyways, without further mucking about, as we say in Canada, let's dig up some Game Boy hidden gems. Alright, so imagine if Tetris and Space Invaders had a baby. But then when it started to grow up, instead of getting famous, it just grew up without fanfare and it became really good at its job and never told anyone or made a big deal about how it's the kid of 2 famous games. That's Quarth. This is a puzzle shooter hybrid by Konami, and it's one of those games that feels instantly simple, like you understand it fully within the first few minutes, and then it slowly builds in complexity and speed and challenge, and before you know it, your brain has been rearranged in a new configuration. You've got a little ship at the bottom of the screen and blocks are drifting down from above. You need to clear the blocks, but to do so, you're actually building them. You shoot blocks upwards, filling in the gaps to complete perfect rectangles or squares. Once a shape is complete, it disappears. Which sounds easy, and at first it is, but I dare you to try and make it 5 minutes. It is not easy, and you won't. Because it starts as a chill, satisfying loop, but suddenly now you're thinking ahead. You're watching these weird, incomplete shapes coming down on you, and you're planning which one gets cleared first, thinking, okay, if I clear this corner, and then that one, and then you're 3 moves deep into a plan that falls apart at the last minute, leaving you frantically spamming the block shooter, which never ends well. Also, the bigger the shape you complete, the better the payoff in terms of points. So there's this constant temptation to get greedy. Like you can clear something small right away, fast and easy, or you could risk it all by trying to build up one big beautiful rectangle and feel like a genius when it works, or like a complete failure when it doesn't, which is more common for me, both in life and this game. It's fast and it gets chaotic and it has that arcade addictive quality where you lose and then immediately jump back in thinking, okay, this time I've got it. But that's also why it's such a great handheld game. Quick sessions, super addictive, and just different enough to feel unique against in the face of all the great Game Boy puzzle games. It didn't get lots of recognition. I'd never heard of it before I saw it in my game list, but it is still totally worth firing up on your favorite doodad. The Dusty Game Society played Ultima 4 Quest of the Avatar a while back, but I actually played this one first. I didn't know anything about Ultima at the time, but I fired this up just out of curiosity, and I enjoyed it. And now that I'm more familiar with Ultima, I get why people don't talk about this. It doesn't feel like Ultima. Runes of Virtue on the Game Boy scratched a different itch as an Ultima game, but it's just as good of a scratch for an itchy gamer like me. Instead of being a massive, complicated RPG, Runes of Virtue is like this streamlined action puzzle dungeon crawling adventure game. You start out by picking one of 4 classic Ultima characters that all kind of play a little bit different, and then you set out across Britannia to recover the stolen Runes of Virtue from the Black Knight. The game plays from a top-down perspective, and there's a focus on exploration and role-playing stuff in the overworld, and puzzle solving and combat in the dungeons. The NPCs will tell you where to go, what rune is where, some side stuff too, usually involving you heading into yet another dungeon. For the combat, it is stupid simple. You got one button that attacks with your weapon. That's pretty much it. For the puzzles, there's lots of like teleporters on the floor, positioning stuff, moving boulders. It feels closer to a handheld Zelda kind of experience than what you'd expect from the Ultima name, and I'm totally fine with that. Apparently, there's even a co-op multiplayer mode with extra content if you link 2 Game Boys together, which is just such a weirdly ambitious thing to include here. As a non-Ultima game, it's just a neat, nostalgic feeling bite-sized dungeon crawler with open world elements. If that sounds like your kind of thing, then this game will be that. Alright, this one can be described like it's lemmings, but everyone's a caveman, and instead of mindlessly walking off cliffs, they're doing like prehistoric problem solving with spears and stuff. The Humans came out on lots of systems. This is the Game Boy port, obviously, and it's a puzzle game where you control a little tribe of cavemen trying to survive a bunch of increasingly ridiculous situations. Each level has a goal, but most of the time it comes down to getting at least one of your humans to a specific exit point. It sounds simpler than it is. You're not controlling the whole group at once. You control one caveman at a time. You'll stack them into human ladders, pass tools around, and coordinate everything just right so that one guy can make it to the end while the rest, they made their sacrifice for the greater good. You got spears for jumping gaps, torches, ropes, wheels, all kinds of stuff. I learned that later on it gets weirder with things like a shaman who can turn your extra tribe members into tools. Not the figurative kind, the literal kind. Like you. The puzzles can be pretty tough, and the game expects you to figure out very specific situations. Like for lots of these, there's only one real answer. Mess something up and you're probably restarting the level, which gives it the same classic Lemmings pain, but also addiction. This didn't become a massive hit on the Game Boy, obviously. You probably haven't heard of this, but I still had a great time playing it. It's just a super unique puzzle game with a ton of personality. It's weird and a little janky and surprisingly clever, and I like the toned down nature of the Game Boy version. So if you're a human, or you're into games with humans in them, you should try The Humans. It's a great game. For humans. Cosmo Tank feels like it's trying to be 3 different games at the same time. You control a tank, rolling across different planets, blasting enemies from a top-down view. But then, you enter these tunnels and the game suddenly switches to a first-person perspective, which is honestly kind of a wild perspective and gameplay style for a Game Boy game. It's chunky and simple, but it works, and it gives the whole thing a surprisingly immersive feel. Once you destroy the core inside a planet, the game throws you into a vertically scrolling space shooter segment before dropping you onto the next world. So you got top-down combat, first-person exploration, and shoot-'em-up sections all stitched together into one thing. It's like a game with ADHD. So it's perfect for me. There's also a light progression system in the main quest mode. As you defeat enemies, your tank gets stronger, which gives the game a bit of a action RPG feel. Not super deep, but enough to make you feel like you're progressing, you're getting stronger over time. And then apparently there's also multiplayer. Yeah, you can actually battle another player using a link cable, which feels like way more than this little cartridge needed to include, but it's neat that they did it. I really should try out some of these multiplayer Game Boy link cable games. Oh, maybe I can make a video about that. Let me know in the comments if that's something you'd like to see. Cosmo Tank is definitely a bit clunky, especially in those first-person sections, but I actually like that. That's part of the charm for me. You don't play Game Boy games because they're the most polished, advanced experiences you can get. You play them for that crunchy retro charm and the weird little experiments that somehow made it onto cartridges in stores, like Cosmo Tank. Okay, this one is pretty important, and you do not hear people talking about this nearly as much as they should. But that also makes sense because The Frog for Whom the Bell Tolls is a Japan-only Game Boy game. You need to play the translation to enjoy this one. I actually talked about this one in my recent ROM hacks video. This one was made by Nintendo and Intelligent Systems, and on the surface, it looks like a cute little top-down adventure where you play as a prince trying to rescue a princess before your rival does. Pretty standard stuff, except it gets as deep and wonderful as any Zelda game. And the reason for that is because this game is basically the predecessor to Link's Awakening. The same dev team, same engine, same font and interface, apparently even some of the sound carried directly over. This game was essentially the foundation that Link's Awakening was built on. So if you like that game, then you kinda need to get this weird frog thing in your life. But apart from the core engine, gameplay and story-wise, it's its own thing. You explore towns and dungeons from that familiar top-down view, but combat is automatic. When you run into an enemy, fights play out on their own based on your stats and equipment. Get stronger gear, boost your stats, and suddenly enemies that used to destroy you now feel like they're made of wet paper. And then there's the transformations. At certain points, you turn into a frog, like the name implies, or a snake, each with their own abilities. It adds puzzle game vibes, so there's more than just stat progression. Also, the game is genuinely funny, like weirdly self-aware, kind of like breaking my expectations for a Game Boy game. It just having a good time with itself in a way that feels very Nintendo. This never got an official English release, which is probably why it's more of a hidden gem, but the translation means that you can get in on this one. A weird little frog adventure that helped create a legend. This one snuck up on me. I thought I knew all the Kirby games. I mean, you got the mainline ones, and then there's the pinball one, and the falling blocks one. So imagine my surprise when I found out there was another Kirby game on the Game Boy, and it's basically Breakout. Actually, you don't have to imagine my surprise. I'll just tell you, it was very surprising. At its core, it's an arcade brick breaker style game. You control paddles around the edges of the screen, bouncing Kirby into blocks to clear them. But it's not just boring rectangles. Each stage is broken into multiple rounds with different layouts and enemies and hazards like spikes for Kirby to die on. So instead of just clearing blocks, you're also smacking enemies around and chasing higher scores and unlock little bonus stages between levels. And there's boss fights, of course. Can't have a Kirby game without boss fights. What really makes this feel like a Kirby game is the copy abilities. Kirby can get powers like electricity and stone and spikes and fire, and each one changes how you interact with the stage. There's also a good amount of content, with tons of stages and bonus stuff tucked in, and it keeps introducing new ideas, so it never really gets stale. It's one of those games that looks simple and it sounds simple, but when you play it, you realize it's got a lot more depth than it seemed at first. It's a weird little Kirby spin-off that no one talks about, but they should, because it's cool. Those who know me well know two things. One, I do not like to share my instant mashed potatoes, and two, I'm a huge fan of the Advance Wars series. I played them all, including Famicom Wars and Super Famicom Wars, so imagine my shock when I found out that this exists. Game Boy Wars is basically the portable evolution of Famicom Wars, which means, yeah, this is straight up the early foundation of what would eventually become Advance Wars. So you probably know what to expect. It's a turn-based strategy game played on grid-based maps. You move units, capture cities, and try to either destroy the enemy army or take their HQ. You got infantry, tanks, air units, naval units. Capturing properties gives you income which you use to build more units. Sound familiar? Yeah, it's Advance Wars. The entire core Advance Wars gameplay is already fully here. It's definitely more stripped down though. No commanding officers, no special abilities, a lot less charm, and no story. It's just pure strategy. Compared to Advance Wars, it's a lot slower, more methodical. It's simple and a bit clunky, but if you love Advance Wars, this feels like opening up the original blueprint and going, yep, there it is, Advance Wars. It's here. Game Boy Wars stayed in Japan for decades, but it finally got an English fan translation in 2024. You should get yourself that translation and patch your backup. Also, apparently there's actually 3 Game Boy Wars games, so this turned into a full little sub-series. I haven't tried the other 2 yet, but that's on my to-do list, right under making more Hidden Gems videos. Speaking of which, that's all I have for you today, but I have so many more games to share. Some more Game Boy hidden bangers, but also tons on other systems too. So get subscribed if you haven't yet, if you want to see more videos like this. And please, let me know if you have any hidden gems to suggest for me to check out. If you point out a good one I don't know about, it might just show up in a future video. And if you're lucky, I'll even give you credit. And if you're unlucky, I'll forget and hog all the credit for myself, as I usually do. Anyways, that'll do it for me for today. Click the thumbs up button if you like the video. Click subscribe and notifications, something YouTube stuff. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.